He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
All right, it's not just an Alex and Friends show today, it's an Alex and Godfather show. John Nolte is here, senior writer for us at Breitbart News, the #1 entertainment and culture writer in all of conservative media, and my actual real-life godfather. So he is always a font of inside information and humor in a dry and biting way, and you will experience that right now with the interview. All right, so John, we've been talking about the Colbert saga of him getting fired by CBS and all that means and what a great scalp it is and what that means for late night and what that means for the Democrat establishment. But there's an added stat that we learned recently that I think is sort of mind-blowing, which is that he was losing $40 million a year, which is almost an impossible number. Break down how this is possible.
It tells me that the upcoming merger between Skydance and CBS parent company, Paramount Global, that's the reason why they are canceling Colbert. Now, the left is claiming that it's political, but it's not political; it's financial. According to the report, Colbert's lost $40 million a year for 4 years, and that's what's political. Keeping him on the air for 4 years at a loss of $40 million. And what tells me above all that it's political, that was a political decision on CBS's part. Excuse me, that they wanted resistance, anti-Trump programming on late night, that CBS funded this. It was basically left-wing affirmative action, was that they never tried to retool the show. In the history of broadcast television, in the history of network television, if you have a television show that's not failing, you either cancel it or you retool it. You know, you see all the time where television shows will add a new cast member, or they'll do something to try and make the show successful to bring in more people. And for 4 years, Colbert was told, carry on. You were losing $40 million, but carry on. So Skydance probably looked at the books and said, what are you people doing? This is costing us $40 million a year for what? He's not doing anything special. He's basically doing an overproduced MSNBC show. You guys need to fix this. We're not going to come in. We're not going to buy CBS and fire Colbert because we all know how that's going to look. You guys need to handle this. And I think that's what happened here. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, it really is. There's so much to it in terms of the politics of it, in terms of how, it feels like a big scalp for us, but that is just so much money. It's just like an unfathomable amount of money to lose. And there really is a big story. And I think the math is, I guess he would have lost $160 million over the years. But how do they do the first 3 years and then come into year 4 and say, we're doing the same stuff? Like, why wouldn't they try, as you say, to retool it, to do something different, to try to come up with something to salvage it, and then they just throw it out? Like, there's just nothing else they could do other than throw it out. It's their only move.
Yeah, they didn't retool it because they liked what he was doing. They wanted him hammering Trump every day of the week, 4 days a week. That's what they wanted. And I think what they thought was that if cable news isn't going to move the needle, maybe disguising what was basically an hour of MSNBC as entertainment, as hip entertainment, will move the needle. And I think that's why they kept it on there, and that's why they didn't do anything to change it. And I'm convinced that the merger is why, because Skydance said we're not taking this guy on. There's no way. And you guys are going to have to.
Okay. Break this down. So what's the state of the merger? What's the state of the merger? Where is it? And what are the various sides arguing, and for what?
Well, the merger's done as far as CBS and Paramount Global are concerned, and Skydance is concerned. They're happy. The money is right. The deal is right. I'm sure that getting rid of Colbert was part of the deal. So it just has to go through the government process, the FCC or the FTC, one of those alphabet agencies, for final approval, and it's going to get final approval. So it's just a matter of getting it through the government process before it happens for real. But what everyone on the left is scared of is that Skydance is owned by the Ellisons, a father and son. And the father's a big Trump supporter, and I
Right.
don't know about the son. But that, of course, terrifies the left because they need to rig the pop culture game to win elections, and they're losing on all these different fronts. CNN is dying, NPR and PBS are defunded, at least taxpayer-wise, and now they might lose CBS to someone who might say, maybe the news actually needs to be unbiased. Maybe we just need to report the truth here. So they're losing all the rig they have in pop culture. Trump's going after the academia. Trump's even going after the Redskins. So this is a very scary time for them because institutionally they're losing all these advantages that they have that conservatives have never had beyond talk radio.
Right. And I think that it does reveal that this really is election interference to some level. That was the point I was making about how, CBS benefits from government spectrum and benefits from government infrastructure. They really have been anointed by the government as trustworthy. And when you've got a ostensibly entertainment comedy platform that's obviously was only kept in the air for politics, and given the losses, everyone knew it was going to lose money, and they kept it on. And the whole point was so that they could influence the election. I mean, that feels like something that shouldn't be legal in this country.
No, CBS benefited from the public airwaves. Those are our airwaves, and they're required by law,
right,
to serve the public. And they weren't serving the public; they were serving the Democrat Party. And even Johnny Carson, who is the god of late night, he's the godhead of that entire format. Even when his ratings hit issues over the years, they would retool his show. They moved him to 4 days a week, but they had a guest host on Friday. Then they would bring in a guest host for a few weeks a year, and Johnny would go on vacation. And these things would all boost the ratings of the Tonight Show. And I was watching a Netflix show over the weekend about Jerry Springer. And there was a time when Jerry Springer had 8 million viewers, 9 million viewers a day. Colbert barely hit 2 million. That's how bad he is. So they can blame the format. They can blame Trump, which they're going to do anyways. But the problem is that he sucked. His format sucked. And CBS proves they wanted that to be a propaganda hour because they never tried to fix the show. We never saw them try to do anything different with that show. It was just MSNBC on steroids, night after night after night. Stephen Colbert, a straight white middle-aged guy, benefited from the greatest affirmative action plan I've come across, the most lucrative affirmative action plan I've ever come across. It's unbelievable.
So, John, we've been talking about the media and how they're losing this foothold in the culture, and how movies aren't as influential as they were. Movie stars aren't as influential, but there's other things in the culture that are influential, from influencers to some of the traditional celebrities still have some pull, but it feels like I don't know where the left has gone to try to claw back some of the territory that they lost during the last year plus. So do you see any bright spots for them right now? We're doing kind of a 6-7 month check-in from inauguration, just over 6 months. What is it that they're doing? Are they doing anything right?
No, when you've got a guy like Zohran Mamdani, who's going to win in New York, then you got a socialist mayor in Minneapolis. They're losing online. And the reason they're losing online is because we have the better argument. And we have the better argument because we have the better memes. And we don't have the better memes because we have the smartest, funniest people. We have the better memes because our arguments are so simple and so easy to boil down.
Yeah, and rooted in truth. Yeah,
that you can boil it down into a meme, and it just explains everything. And the left can't do that because they're all convoluted. They're always worried about offending someone. If they do a meme about Islam, they have to worry about the Jews. If they do a meme about the Jews, they have to worry about the gays. And we don't have to do that because we're just based on common sense. So they're losing their the NPR, they're losing to CBS. Trump's suing them effectively. Fox News, which I'm no fan of, is on the ascent, and I'd much rather have Fox News on the ascent than anyone else. CNN is gone; it's basically dead. When's the last time CNN made a ripple? I haven't even thought about writing, except their ratings. I haven't thought about writing anything about CNN in a long time. So they're losing on every front. Trump stole all their best, all the
there's no
Democrats'
point.
best
What's the
arguments.
point? No.
I just don't see him coming back. I don't, because we are so emboldened. Those of us on the right are so emboldened.
CNN is. Yeah, and the CNN stuff is just basically just to create content for us. No one ever tunes in, because why would they? I mean, you get the news so much faster, more accurate elsewhere. But I want to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can do. Last time we spoke, we were eating each other alive over Epstein. The Wall Street Journal bailed us out in that regard by publishing just an absolutely absurd hit piece on Trump that was, I felt like I was explaining to, my 6-year-old, like it was like that level of argumentation to debunk the piece, and yet they ran it, which I don't get. But so then we got something really interesting, which is this John Brennan story, where it's clear that Obama was involved, or the Obama executive branch administration was involved in coordinating the Russian collusion hoax to try to nullify the 2016 election and to get Trump branded as a Russian stooge, et cetera. Give me some key details there, John. And also, what do you think it comes of this? Because when people immediately go to this is treason, I always feel like my brain goes the other way. I always start thinking, okay, this is a talking point, and this is not necessarily anything's going to come of it. We have a knack for overpromising in the conservative commentary. What do you actually make of this?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's treason. I know they sent the information to the Department of Justice, and there might be laws broken as far as manipulating intelligence. I'm sure there was perjury, but I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that. But nothing they've released has surprised me in the least. I've been calling this a hoax since day one. I connected the dots back to Obama since day one, and people were telling me to chill. You can't really say that you don't know. I said, no, I know. And when the Washington Post runs a story about wiretaps in the White House, people listening to wiretaps in the White House, and then has to pretend that they didn't, everything, it was all very clear then what was going on. The question is now, is the Trump administration going to do something about this? Is there going to be actual accountability? Or is he just going to fire off these Truth Social memes and AIs of Obama getting arrested? Because if it's as serious as they say it is, there's nothing funny about it. And there needs to be accountability. There needs to be indictments. There needs to be grand juries. And if they're not going to do that, just shut up and deport people. I don't need your right-wing wacky material. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of them releasing all this stuff and, it's such a big deal. And then there's no accountability. People need to be held accountable for this. And if they're not held accountable for it, just shut up and just deport people. Focus on that instead of giving Fox News content, because it doesn't matter if there's not going to be accountability.
What do you feel like are the key agenda items right now that you'd like to see front and center? Well, what do you think you'd like to see as the biggest focal point for the president right now?
Oh, definitely focusing on the deportations. There's the more you read about it, the more you learn about what Biden did, letting in 12 million people, the more that you realize how hard they work to try and change the demographics of the country, especially in red states, dropping in all these people from Haiti into one little town. It's just sinister. And to me, that really is the most important thing. And I've come way to the other side on this. I used to have a lot of sympathy for illegals because I understood why they wanted to come here. But when you understand that, you give the left an inch and they take 12 million miles, you understand the importance of that. So that's the primary thing I'd like him to focus on. Other than the basic stuff, keep us safe and keep the economy going. We'll see how the BBB, the big beautiful bill, how that affects the economy in the next 6 months or so.
Economically speaking, John, I know that you've talked a lot to me because you're my real life godfather. I know how you live. You're very allergic to debt, and you don't like having any debt. And I'm wondering, I feel like culturally, the amount of debt we're carrying is starting to have an effect on people, because it feels like the people are carrying lots of personal debt. We've bought into systems where you essentially are forced to borrow if you want to live by society's norms, particularly with college, and then people get mortgages that are just insane. And now when you get interest rates as high as they've been for so long, I think it does kind of erode people's optimism about the country. Not to say we're not optimistic in general, we are. I feel like that this is more the eye test than data. Data shows we're doing okay, but I just do feel like people's I think outlook long term, if you look at the national debt, you look at personal debt, I don't think it's as strong as it could be, and I'm just wondering if that's connected and if you've given that any thought.
Yeah, all the debt does is it makes me feel the national debt, the debt with the deficit and the debt is just make me feel like we're not running things very well. I don't worry about it hurting the economy because, like I said before, I've been told it's like global warming. I've been warned about the deficit crashing the economy for 40 years. It just never happens. I think a country our size can have a mortgage, but
Yeah.
it is it just feels like we're not doing things wisely. It feels messy. I wish our house was better in order. The states seem pretty
Sure.
capable of running on a budget because most of the states are required by their own constitutions to not create a deficit. So I would like to see it, but the problem is no one's willing to pull the trigger on it because you have to it has to go to entitlements. It's entitlements that are killing us, and no one has the courage to do that. Even Trump won't do it, and I understand why. It's the American people don't want what it's going to take to fix our financial house. They won't accept it. And in a representative democracy, what are you going to do? I mean, if you touch entitlements, you're dead, and that's been proven over the last 30 years. Newt Gingrich
Yeah.
tried it, and you're dead.
So I guess my thought is, but what about on a personal level, just the fact that we're basically coaching everyone to borrow, and I just think it just feels like the whole apparatus is based off of everyone being deeply indebted all the time. And I just I know that's good for the soul is my point. It's not that it's going to destroy the country. I'm more worried about something internal, like something
Yeah, well,
inside
debt.
each human being.
I see debt as a form of slavery because if you owe people money, um, if I used to work for a collection agency, and it was a very tough job because you had to make your nut every 30 days, and people were getting fired all the time because they didn't collect enough money. They were getting demoted all the time, and if you got demoted, there was a big cut in income, and it was always this fear that you had to produce, otherwise the company wasn't screwing around, and there was always 10 guys looking to take your spot. And I would see people make it up to the top, and then they would spend money or go into debt as though they were always going to have that job. So they'd get promoted
Yeah.
into a large balance, and then all of a sudden they would buy a house, and they'd have a $1,200 mortgage. This was 30 years ago, so it's probably be a $3,500 mortgage today. They'd buy a new car, and all of a sudden they're in debt, and they got these payments, and then they would have a couple of bad months, and they'd crack because they knew they weren't going to be able to pay their bills. And you know, I went into debt to buy a house, but I paid it off as quickly as I could. And really, since then, I've tried not. I had to go into debt this year because we had a ton of expenses, but we're going to pay it off as quick as we can. But if you can, you need to avoid debt. And when we bought the house, I remember telling my wife that whatever house we buy, the payment has to be low enough that if I lose my job, we could cover the mortgage on unemployment because I did not want to be trapped by debt. And I see people today, credit cards are insane. You're insane. If you use a credit card because you want to get the miles and you pay it off at the end of each month, you don't pay any interest. That's the way to do it. That's the way we do it. But if you have debt on a credit card, you're paying 25% interest. I mean, that's just money you're throwing away. So really the secret to freedom in America is to not go into debt. And if you have to go into debt because you want a house or you want a car, and I understand that, to pay it off as quickly as possible, because you're just going to get raped on the interest over the years. I mean, if you take out a loan for $100,000 and your interest rate is 12%, let's say on a credit card or something, that's $12,000 a year you're paying in interest. A year. It sounds like a low interest rate. It's not. It's
Yeah, it's a lot.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah, it's a lot. John, I want to move gears back to why part of what we waste money on as a country, and that's NPR and PBS. That's been defunded finally. It's sort of anticlimactic for me that happened, but it's what were your thoughts on that after another promise that had been made for 20 years and finally we got there?
Yeah, what Trump is proving overall is that all we needed was a Republican president with some cojones, because he's doing it. He's doing all these things that we've been promised for so long. We're probably going to defund Planned Parenthood. The states are doing it because he's giving people the courage to do that. We finally defunded NPR, PBS. It's just a miracle. But why didn't it happen under George W. Bush? Why didn't it happen under Ronald Reagan? And What's nice is that we no longer have to worry about NPR. They're part of the free enterprise system. They could say whatever they want. It's not our money anymore. We don't have to worry about it. They're about to lose a lot of free publicity from places like Breitbart News, because what do we care? You're just it's NBC on the radio. So who cares?
Yeah, and so they'll survive, but I said we did defund them. I just hope that it's sort of out of principle. So I hope that principally we're able to get a nice victory, and be able to carry that momentum, because I don't know how much of an effect it'll actually have, but it's just kind of unbelievable how we allowed for this to go on for so long when we just publicly fund our own demise. And I don't know why were we always so afraid to actually take a stand on this stuff? All right, we know that good coffee is kind of easy to find. There's a lot of good coffee out there, but great coffee, that's a different story. And when I was introduced to Crockett Coffee, I knew this was something special. This is roasted to perfection in small batches on purpose by experts who love the taste of great coffee and are conscientious about how it's made and who's making it. It's roasted in our nation's heartland and it's delivered fresh to your home. When you enjoy Crockett Coffee, you're also supporting an anti-communist, pro-American brand of coffee founded by our friends Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, who are good broadcasters and are apparently dang good at making a cup of coffee as well. The perfect type of thing to sip at a mountain campfire like a Western settler, or in your office while you're doing a podcast. It is just really high quality stuff. You guys know I'm a coffee snob, married to an Italian. I like to hit that dark roast. They also sent me some mild roast, which was delicious. They got a light roast. They got a decaf. They got a mushroom organic blend. That's the new hotness. They got K-Cups. Lots of different options for you. And part of your support goes to Tunnel to Towers Foundation, which is a great way to give back and remind people that Crockett Coffee, people there, they pledge to never forget. Easy. Go online, crockettcoffee.com. Crockett like it as in Davy Crockett. crockettcoffee.com. Use my first name, Alex. You get 20% off your first order. That's crockettcoffee.com. Use my name, Alex, as the promo code for 20% off. Good people and a dang good cup of coffee. You guys know I would not endorse it if it wasn't quite delightful.
It was always the emotional the emotional blackmail. Oh, you're going to kill Big Bird, or the local stations are going to go out of business. And what did it take? It took 10 Republicans to go weak. To make sure that it couldn't happen. And that's how it always worked. But, so much has changed in the culture now as far as the political discussion that we're having. And again, it goes back to just the fact that our arguments are memes, and they're simple and they're common sense. So whenever, like the woman who ran the CEO of NPR, she'd say, well, the rural, we're not going to be able to get emergency programming out to rural people anymore. Within 10 seconds, that's destroyed on Twitter, on X. And of course, Republican congressmen, you have to remember that the entire media culture was set up primarily to sway the opinions of Republican lawmakers, to create a world that didn't exist, to create a bubble that didn't exist, to sway
Wow.
Republican lawmakers. That was the whole point of CNN. That was the whole point of MSNBC. They just would create this nonsense world, and they just needed to sway enough Republicans to go their way. And we have shattered that through social media, through new media, starting with talk radio. So that's gone now. So when they try to emotionally blackmail Republicans, then those of us can get online and we can say, wait a minute, this is why this argument is total nonsense, and you don't have to worry about it. Plus, we're convincing, how many millions of Americans along the way. There is no good argument for the American people to fund public radio or public television anymore. None. But now we can make that argument. 10, 15 years ago, we couldn't.
Yeah, really interesting. I was thinking about this exact phenomenon because I was seeing like who does a good job on CNN now. And, it's Scott Jennings, it's Tim Burchett, the congressman, and it seems like they're kind of making fun of the other people on the show. And I feel like that's interesting. Is not even that we're going on like Byron Donalds, Eric Trump. I've seen those guys go on CNN and debate them, and it's good. It works out because they're good at debating. But overall, I feel like that's sort of a waste of time because what if we don't win the debate? Then we're just indulging them and giving them good publicity. But I think that this new approach where you're kind of almost making fun of the people you're on the show with is it's pretty effective. And I'm kind of surprised they're letting it go on over there. But unlike CBS, I guess they feel like they need to try something different.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Scott Jennings has really cracked the code. He's gone on. He is totally prepared. He's fearless, but he's affable. And you're right. He just the way he looks at the camera, and that's if I were a left winger, that's what I would cut. I wouldn't show his reaction because he always looks at the camera and he goes, and you just know that that's what he's thinking. And he's the biggest star in CNN right now. And I like you, I'm surprised they let it go on.
And also because no one's going to tune in anyway. I mean, he's good, but it doesn't mean we're going to watch CNN. We're just
watch his clips. We don't watch CNN
many times. Yeah,
just
we'll
get on
the
Twitter
clips.
and watch his clips.
So it's like the worst of all worlds for CNN, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
In that regard, because they're getting their other personalities are looking unbelievable. Like Torre, who Andrew Breitbart used to make fun of 15 years ago, was on with Scott Jennings, and he says he doubts that Trump got shot in the ear, and no one doubts that. That's true crackpot stuff. That's QAnon looks totally credible compared to that type of stuff, and he's on CNN. Like that's not on some obscure left wing podcast or a web forum. I mean, that's CNN. They got CNN major primetime panel. One of the panelists is saying that Trump really didn't get shot in the ear, that was all made up, that grand conspiracy had happened. And so Scott Jennings looks like a genius just for sitting there. And it's just, it's all you got to do is sit there.
Yeah, no, it's great. He's great TV. He's just great TV. I hope he stays there forever. And notice he's always outnumbered. It's always 7-1, 5-1. They just outnumber the guy shamelessly, and he's still the star. He's CNN's new star by far. And it's not because he's conservative, it's because he's interesting.
So let's talk about, I want to talk about Hollywood. I'm going to change gears to Hollywood. Give me your thoughts on where we're at in the movie business right now, because are you seeing movies? Because it feels like another year where movies are out of the culture. I'm kind of, it doesn't look like Superman's going to necessarily make money, even though that was, there was a lot in it for a lot of people, I think, and it's still no one cares. Is anyone doing anything of note right now that you feel like is worth pointing out?
No, it's all, superhero garbage and animated movies, and there's really the only movie I've seen this year that was interesting was Sinners, which was the vampire movie by Black Panther director Ryan Coogler, who wrote and directed it. That was a legitimately interesting, entertaining, sort of audacious movie. I really enjoyed F1, which was basically Top Gun, starring Brad Pitt as a race car driver. But other than that, It's just this generic garbage, and it's so expensive to produce this generic garbage like Superman. And I love Superman, but I didn't like the movie very much. That they're losing money, and I don't know how this is sustainable. And now we have Marvel talking about how they're going to reboot Iron Man and Captain America, but with different actors. And that is conceding defeat right there. That all their woke nonsense failed. Now they're going to go back and recast it, they're going to bring back the X-Men. And I just don't think that this stuff is going to work. They have to just go back to making normal movies for normal people that don't cost $350 million. And I don't know if they know how to do that anymore. It's a very, very, very broken system.
So what do you think is the future? I mean, where are people going to get? Are we going to have a shared cultural center the way we had with movies for so long, or do you feel like that's TV, or do we think that that's gone? And it's probably okay if it is. It feels like we could be heading in that direction.
Yeah, I like a culture that's atomized. I like a culture that's balkanized. I don't want a mainstream culture. For 100,000 years, people lived without a mainstream culture. And it's only really been in the past 70, 80, 90 years that we've had a mainstream central culture. And I don't like that. I think we should all do our own thing and enjoy our own thing and not be programmed by the central computer. The movie business is just going to be these amusement park rides. That's all that they can really do to get people to come anymore. And there's no movie stars that draw us. The movies are too expensive. So it's just going to be these thrill rides that cost a fortune to try and keep the business going. But I don't see a central culture anymore. I just don't. And that's a very, very good thing. We all need to go off and do our own thinking. We don't need Taylor Swift or whomever telling us what to believe or how to think or what the new fashions are going to be. We'd be a lot more interesting as an overall culture if we all just thought for ourselves.
Yeah, I think so. All right. So the last little bit for the day, tell me about what you think is we're looking at the Trump agenda taking shape. We got the bill through. We've had this Epstein issue where some of the base is fractured a little bit. We've got deportations, which are really the Democrats really hate and Republicans like, but some Republicans don't like it enough. How are you feeling politically about the momentum? Rasmussen's got Trump over 50%, but overall, one of the traps of governance is that whenever you try something, some people even on your own side won't like it, and then so it's very hard to maintain a 50% coalition. Democrats still seem to have nothing cohesive or coherent in terms of a message other than trying to goad us into talking about Epstein as much as we can. So where do you think we're at here as a movement 6 months in?
I think Trump's done a fantastic job. He hit the ground running. He had a game plan. He's fearless. He's right on the issues. It's been an epic 6 months. And the thing about Trump is that he had 4 years to sit and think about this. And he obviously believed he was going to win because he put a cabinet together that was extraordinary and that is actually not trying to backstab him like the previous cabinet. So I think we're in for an amazing 3.5 years. I think he's got long-range plans, and obviously that includes J.D. Vance running for president and continuing the MAGA movement for another 8 years. This guy, he wants to be historic. He wants to be on Mount Rushmore. He wants to be named with Roosevelt and Reagan. And he's definitely on path to do that. And I have great faith in his abilities to communicate, to whip the GOP, to vote behind him, and to come up with all these brand new ideas that seem like common sense, but the rest of us are going, why didn't we think of that? Why don't that's something we never thought of. So as he cleans house and he gets rid of the bureaucrats and the enemies, the political people and the bureaucracy, and if the economy starts rocking, and I think it's going to, and he can hold on to the House in 2028, I think we're going to have a very historic presidency. I'm filled with confidence.
I feel very positive too, and I'm trying to bring that back with people. Yeah, I when I was at the Turning Point event a few weeks ago, I was trying to bring back the confidence and the positivity, which is, I don't mean to be all kumbaya. I'm contrarian, so sometimes when we're all in a happy mood, I tend to tell people when we should be upset. But I feel like we're all kind of grumpy, and I feel like things are going pretty dang good. And it's just, John, if you picture us, in Andrew Breitbart's basement, as you and I were 15 years ago, before Trump came down the escalator and had that chaotic start to the campaign. I mean, just the thought that we'd be here is just, it's unbelievable. We should be lapping it up every day.
Yeah, the Epstein thing should not be putting people off their feet. I mean, we have a right to be upset about it because it was oversold, but you got to look at the overall picture, and the overall picture is breathtakingly good.
Yeah, I agree with that. A nice note to go out on. All right, John, thank you, my friend. At Nolte NC on Twitter. His book, Borrowed Time, is a must-read, and he's also really good on Facebook. Those of you who use Facebook, John, I just noticed that. My parents, and they reminded me that John's Facebook is really good, if you guys like that. So that's all. And everything he writes at Breitbart News is fantastic, particularly for you Fight Club members. All right, thanks, John. We'll talk to you next time.